This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, now, first of all, not too much studies is going to go on today. I just want to introduce you to the whole module, how we're going to work in this module. What are the things that I would require you to do, what you have to, read and where to refer and all those things. So I typically like to divide this entire training into 4 parts. Okay. This is part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. So what we start in part 1 is we are going to work with recording of macros. One of the very easiest thing, the most easiest thing to do in VBA is recording a macro, but one of the most important activity to learn, because I would not be able to teach you everything that is there to learn in VBA, and you should also not pressurize yourself to learn everything in VBA. So the way I want this program, or what I want as the output of this whole program, is very simple, that I should make you literate to read the VBA codes. When you're looking at a code, you should be able to know what the code is saying, because as an analyst, you would not have too much time in your hand to sit in code all the time. So I'm going to give you the essential portions of coding, how to read it, how to write it, and unless you don't practice writing it, reading won't come very easy, right? So we are going to read a lot, we are going to write a lot, and then at the end of it, I want you to be so capable that you can record the codes anytime you forgot how the code is or you don't know how the code is, right? So record the code and modify the code to your use. That should be the aim, because you are not going to become a VBA developer over here. Your main aim is automation. Automation of things in Excel to make your work faster, automation in data preparation and cleaning to make your work faster. That is the aim for this whole batch. Second part of it is going to be only programming concepts. This class is specifically meant for people who have no idea what programming is. Now, when I say no idea, I mean never ever in their life, whether it was class 4th or 5th or 10th, 11th or college, they've never touched programming. Okay, because essentially VBA is a very hardcore kind of a programming language. It's very different from how you would have done R or SAS. So in this, you really need to do from scratch programming. So basic concepts, if they are not there, you will not be able to code very well. So we're going to work on that. Followed by that, then we are going to get into the Excel automation. Okay, which is obviously the primary goal of this particular module. So we're going to get into Excel automation, and at the end, we are going to end with the dashboards and form controls. So basically, ending is based on your interface for the users. Okay, we're going to understand how we're going to make it easier for the person using my code to work from the front end, to kind of make an application in VBA that it looks more like a software rather than Excel, and people are able to use it very easily, anybody who's a non-user of Excel, and work with the codes, right? And dashboard is pretty much the top thing to do these days. So dashboarding can be done with Excel, can be done with VBA. So I'll introduce you to the concept of what is a dashboard, how do we create it, what is the thought process, what are the steps to do it, and then I'm going to teach you how to do it in Excel. Now, when you know the VBA coding, you know how to do it in Excel, I'm sure you can code it for the backend also. So this is going to be our total topic division. Recording of the macro is one class that will start today and end today. Programming concepts pretty much takes me 3 classes, and it depends on your pace also. I really like to go with the pace of the batch. If I feel that the pace is slow, then I slow down. If it's fast, we complete faster. Excel automation takes about 4 classes. This is the most important component, but without these 3 classes, the 4 classes can't happen. And then dashboard and form control will be another class also. So in total, there are going to be 9 classes. Now it can overshoot based on how curious you get. Some of the batches I've done 12 because I want to do more projects, I want to do more hands-on, I want to do this. So if you keep asking me, I'll keep giving. And if you're happy with what is delivered and you're not able to, you're thinking this is only more than enough, then we stop there. Now, as far as it comes to books, there is only one book I'm going to recommend. and I have a PDF copy, so I'll send it across on the Google Classroom. I don't want you to look at any other books. And in that book also, I'll tell you there is one particular unit, Unit 3, on which we need to focus. Like I said, I'm not getting you over here for a VBA developer role. My aim is automation of Excel for the work in analytics industry, right? So our aim is going to be very focused on what we want to learn in VBA. So Unit 3 only is what we're going to focus. That book I'm going to give when we get into the part 4, not before that, because before that it's all gibberish. Next thing is notes. If you don't feel like writing anything, perfectly fine, because VBA is one subject in which I write notes for each and every batch, each and every class. Every day I will be writing notes, I will be writing example codes, I will be writing the codes we are discussing in the class and uploading the file. The file remains the same from the beginning to the end, and when you open the codes, you will see every time I put the date, so you will know on which date which topics were taught, what are the concerning notes, and what are the concerning codes for it. So it's easy revision. All I want from you is when you go back, you have to revise the notes, you have to look at the codes and come back. Coding is almost like learning a language where you start with the alphabets. You have to learn ABC, then you start with a 2-letter word, 3-letter word, then you make a sentence. So if you miss on any portion of that, your writing of a code is going to become very difficult. And if you don't remember, like I have taught you the spelling of cat, and you forget it over and over again, then it becomes difficult to write sentences, hence the programs. Right? Anybody who is missing classes, my simple urge, please look at the video before you come for the classes. Unlike Excel, where I didn't bother too much, I was okay with if you miss a class, I will say, okay, look at the video and do it, because over there things are not so related to each other. Over here, things are absolutely related to each other. So if you miss a class, please watch a video and come back. If you're not watching the video and coming back, you yourself will feel very lost and you will drop your interest in this module. Some statistics, the drop rate in VBA is very high of students. So if I start with, let's say 20, it almost 30 to 40% is left with me. A couple of things why it happens this way, because it is little difficult. This is very unlike other modules, what you've done at IB. We are trying to make it as smooth and as easy as possible. So please don't drop, work a little extra hard. Okay, please don't drop from the program. And wherever you feel, I can do my bit of being a trainer, how I can make it more simplified, more example, more understanding, I'll do that. But you keep poking me that, nahi samajh aaya, I'm a little lost, it's finding it difficult, how can I make it easy? I'll try my level best. But don't drop. I have to give this inspirational speech every time I start a VBA batch. Yep. Where is the other person? She's stuck in traffic. Front benches. Oh. Okay, any questions from you guys? Subrajyoti Mandal is also there. Is it the same Subrajyoti? No, I think it's a different Subrajyoti. Name and title is exactly the same, but I don't think so. This is that Subrajyoti. All right, so let's start. I'm going to make, like I said, I'll keep making files and keep uploading in the Google Classroom for you guys. Where did I save it? Where do I put the file? Strange. What's your name again? Shomik. Shomik. Your Google test. Hold on 1 second. Lost my bearing somewhere. You also need some. No. No. Why? Huh? Who's joining Nielsen? Why? Oh. You also started working. Oh, PwC. And you? Digital View. Avenues. I'll help you with the Google Classroom a little later. थोड़ा पढ़ाई कर लेंगे, then we go back to the Google Classroom world. I'll put the class code out and then you guys can look at the class code and join. Okay. So we're going to start with recording of a macro. What do you think is macro? What is a macro?
And whatever steps we do in Excel, it gets recorded in a macro, and when we execute it, we don't need to put all the details.
Little more simpler definition if possible. Repetition of work is macro, but it reduces your repetition of work, right? So what is a macro? Macro is basically a tool, it's a program that Excel creates, which helps in repetition. Okay, it's a program that Excel creates which helps in the repetition of your work. Now, recording of a macro is a very simple exercise. It's as simple as on your smartphones, if you guys want to record a person dancing, let's say, what you do is hit the record button, you see a person dancing, you hit the stop button, that gets recorded. When you want to look at it again, you play the play button and it's there, right? That is exactly how recording of the macros happen. We have a record button. Once you click on it, it starts recording. So whatever steps you've done in Excel, it creates a code in the backend. So who's creating the code? Excel is creating these codes. And once you stop the recording, the codes created are there in the backend for you to use multiple times. So whenever you see, okay, there is a need to repeat this particular process, we rerun the macros. And in the process, we are doing a repetitive task. Now, when you want to start with the recording of the macro, the recording is of two types. What are the two types of recording? One is called absolute, and this is also the default recording style, and one is called relative. Relative recording and absolute recording. I'm sure you guys remember these words back in Excel. You guys remember these words? Relative, absolute, references. Yes, so in references we did this absolute reference, relative reference. So what does it mean? You can explain me in terms of Excel, what did it mean? Absolute means dollar sign. Absolute works on the same cells, okay? And relative? Your definition is generic. Be more precise. It's generic. Dynamic, generic. Anything other? Can I get a definition like what Mujtaba gave? He said, okay, what is absolute? Absolute means working on the same cells. And what does relative means? Works in the different cells based on what? What is that anchor point in Excel called? What is that anchor point in Excel called? Active cell, right? So what is absolute, what is relative? If you think in terms of Excel, how does it work in Excel? That we have some function or we have some formula and you're copy pasting these functions or formula. Now, if something is absolute, what does it mean? That if I copy this function or formula and paste it anywhere in Excel, so if we copy paste and we paste it anywhere in Excel, the function remains the same, the formula remains the same, and the cells on which it was acting was also the same. Yes or no? If we have done an absolute recording, absolute means dollar sign. If you put dollar sign on a cells, so if I copy that formula and I paste it anywhere, it can be anywhere. The function, the formula, the whatever process is happening, that remains the same, and it also acts on the same set of cells, right? But when we do relative, again, if I copy and paste it somewhere, the function remains the same, the formula remains the same, but what changes? The position or the cells on which it's acting. And what are those cells? Those are relative to the active cell position. Okay, so now if I turn it into a recording, if I say that how does it work in recording, let's say, very simple example, we started recording and the default recording style is what? Absolute, and we started recording 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We stopped recording and now the macro has written the code behind it. What is the role of a macro? The macro has to repeat my process, right? So if I run the macro now, what will it do? It'll go give 1, 2, 3, 4. Where? G column where? I have to ask 3 questions to get one answer. Where? Lalit. First row, you mean it will again go back to G1 and do the process? It'll start from the active cell, it'll start from G1. G1 to G5. All of you agree? Not sure? Not sure, Preetham. What about guys online? Only Mojtaba has had his cup of coffee. Everybody still needs a cup of coffee. So Mijit, Tista, Sohini, where is that cup of coffee you need to drink? Eeshani, you're back. And that's scary, Shani. Ananya, Ashika, Hansa, Rituparna. Guys, all of you need to answer. What do you think will happen? Only one guy is answering me. What do you think? We are recording from G1, so we recorded and we did this step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we stopped here. And we say we are going to run again. So what will happen? Where will it start from? So from the active cell. Preetham, we give a random answer. You think it starts from G1, Lalit? G1 Anandi? G1 Sahib? Yeah, I just thought I can cut with the names, yeah? G1. Sure, you're just going with the flow now. Not sure. From the selected cell. Selected cell is this one, Abhishek. So will it go from here? Again, go back. What did I say is absolute? Absolute means the process repeats again, but on what? Same set of cells. Same set of cells. Where did we run the process? G1 to G5. So it has to go back to G1 and it has to repeat the process of this. Now, half of us must be thinking, not half of us, 90% of us must be thinking, what is the point of doing this? Why would I run it on the same set of cells when it's already done? So when we say we are using the macros to repeat the process, it really does not mean on the same sheet, right? If I move to some other sheet, let's say sheet 3, and now if I run the code, if it will go to G1 and from G1 it will put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Do you see an application of this? Almost all of you sitting in front of me are working professionals. All of you are, not almost. Preetham, you're working now? Yes. So all of you are working professionals. So where do you see a need for this? Why would I repeat the process on the same set of cells? But it can be on different sheets or a different workbook, but on the same set of cells. In which copy pasting a formula does not happen on the same set of cells. It actually happens on different cells. No, something better. Why would I do this activity?
Reports that is columns, similar columns in different washes.
Typically, reports are like that. They are very, same thing. So every month you create a report, or every, let's say, quarter we create a report, and the reports exactly look the same. All that has changed is a value underneath it. So the process that you're going to do to create that monthly report is the same process we did last month. And where we are working is again the same set of cells where we are working now. Only thing that has changed is the values where it's going to pick the things from. So in this case, in reporting is a one example where we absolutely need to use absolute recording. Same set of cells are being used over and over again in different sheets. Yes or no? The values are different. So what you would do probably, let's say this is the place where we want to populate. Now this is a cell where I want to use a sum function. Right, so sum function is being used. Now wherever the data is put, so what we would do when we are recording a macro, we create a workbook in which, let's say, this is a source from where the things are getting picked. So only thing we'll do is copy paste the new values on top of this place. Right, when we have copy pasted this new values, now it has to work on the same set of cells again. And the process is also remaining the same. The formatting is exactly the same. Right, the calculations are the same. So that's why we are going to use a absolute recording. Right, now if you move back, let's say this time we did a relative recording, and again we did the same process. When I recorded, I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now where will it run? It's a relative recording. Now it will run from G6. Yes, no, maybe. This is the active cell. Which cell I have selected is active cell. So Mustafa says G6, others from the active cells, G6, G6. Now everybody is on the same page. Very good. It starts from G6. Right? If I had selected this cell, again it would have started from this place. It would have gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So wherever is your active cell, from that active cell it repeats the process. What was the process? That you kept putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the cells below you. So this is what your absolute and your relative recording is all about. Any questions? Sleepy already? Huh? Okay. See, basically, you will only enjoy what you're learning if you find an application in your work, especially for people like you who are coming for very specific modules at IB. And working professional. Working professionals are only the best way to learn is apply, find an application to do what you're doing. Okay, let's say we took a dump of this data and we got information in this format. Everything got dumped in a column. And on the top, I put the headers because what I have in the record is I've got the first name, last name, street name, city, state, pin code, phone number, and email IDs. Okay, so this is what I have, and these are the headers on the top. Now, can I work on this data set? Can I work on this data set? No. What do I need to do it first? Transpose. Basically, it has to be in a structured format. This is not a structured format for Excel. It does not have a defined row and column. So first thing that we need to do is convert it into a proper row and column. So all I have to do is copy this. You need coffee? Sure. You need coffee? You're looking at each other. Okay, that was a special nod. You've got understanding with my IB people. I like that. Okay, so I transposed it, and then we are going to delete this. Then we are going to delete it, and I'm going to delete the entire row. Then I'm going to come back over here and repeat my process. Transpose, come down, delete, and repeat the process. Right? Same thing. Now, obviously there's a scope of recording a macro here because what I'm doing is I'm doing a repetitive job. And how do you understand that the macro should be used? If it's a repetition of the job without any brain work, it's like you can have a cup of coffee, chit chat, and still do your work in Excel. That's how repetitive it can be. So if something like this is there, always look for a scope of recording a macro. But before recording a macro, what you need to decide is whether it's going to be an absolute macro or it's going to be a relative macro. Preetham has given the verdict. It's a relative macro. What about others? Relative, relative, relative. If I need to? Cut. If I'm going to cut and transpose, I can't cut and transpose. I can only copy and transpose. Transpose does not work with cutting. And then I've deleted. So that it can be an absolute macro also. Sahib. Relative. Yes. Must be relative. Okay. Relative, relative, relative. No absolutes. Hansa, relative. Saptarishi, Eeshani, Sanchari, Rituparna, Abrudeep, all relative, huh? Yes.
If it gets repeated on same set of cells like B2, starts from B2 and then B3.
Yeah.
I think there is scope for absolute.
So when you say that, let's say it starts from the same set of cells B2 and then B3, how about the same set of cells? The position is changing, right? So what is there that it is a relative macro? Why it is a relative macro? It's not absolute. No, absolute. It's not absolute. It's relative. Why it's relative? Because you're utilizing B2. Next, where will you copy paste? You will start from B3. So you're not working on the same set of cells again. So if you're not working on the same set of cells again and again, it is not a absolute macro. It's a relative.
Ma'am, it like this that we have to just do the first step, but there are no continuous steps. Each continuous worksheets, we need to do steps.
Same step in B2. Then it's absolute. So typically, like what you have said, what he was saying, that what if we had to repeat this step but in and the same, we have to only work in B2 but in different sheets, then it's what? It's absolute. And as a thumb rule, if you think about it, if you're recording and running the macro in same sheet, recording and running the macro in the same sheet, it has to be a relative recording. Because again, what is the point of repeating the same step on the same cell in the same sheet? There is no point. So typically if you're recording and you're running the macro in the same place, in the same sheet, then it's a relative macro. Make sense? Help me with your name, yeah. Pallavi, you don't smile. Huh? Not at Nielsen also. You smile, okay, thank God. I don't remember your name because I don't remember teaching you. Prateek, no? I know, that's why I don't know your name. Others I know from their faces. Okay, so it's relative, right? Now let's go back, take a step. There are some tips I would like to give before you start recording. And if you follow this, hopefully we'll make less number of errors in recording. Why the tips are required is just like we are videotaping our friend dancing. The friend falls a couple of times while dancing, mistakes happened. And if the mistakes happen, do you think it gets recorded? Yes, they are recorded in your video. So when you're playing back, you can see, oh my God, you fell at this place. Oh, this step is wrong, right? So same thing happens when you're recording a macro. What you're doing, you're doing a series of tasks. You're doing series of steps in Excel. Now, if you're making mistakes, if you're doing something which is wrong, it is not avoided because macro does not know whether it was right or wrong. It can't differentiate for you. So what it does, it records everything. Now, as a result of this, two things can happen. Either the macro runs, but it's working on the wrong set of cells or doing a wrong thing. A second thing that can happen, the macro does not run at all. In order to make sure that these kind of problems do not happen, we are just going to follow 4 simple steps while we are recording. Number 1 is going to be always dry run the process. Number 2, pick an appropriate start cell. Pick an appropriate selection method. And number 4, avoid unnecessary work. Got it? So always dry run the process, pick an appropriate start cell, pick an appropriate selection method, avoid unnecessary work while recording. What does it mean? What does dry run means? Again, let's go back to the friend who's dancing. So if the person had dance practice, let's say a couple of times, 20 times this guy knows he's practicing over and over again, what do you think are the chances of making mistake? Very less. So when I say dry run the process, what I really mean is when you're recording a process, try to run the process multiple times, like 1 or 2 times at least, to ensure you know all the steps correctly. And you will not make a mistake while recording. So that's what dry run means. Like for example, a lot of people do this thing, they will copy and they'll try to transpose in the same cell. It does not happen in the same cell. So this really happening while you're recording, it's better if you would have practiced and you knew this ahead of time, right? So dry run the process means whatever you're going to record, make sure you are repeating that process in Excel multiple times before you actually start recording that process. Second thing is that you should know or start, I said start from an appropriate cell. Now why that is a botheration for me. Which is my active cell right now? G6. G6 is my active cell. Okay. Now when I start recording, what do you think is going to be my next step? I'll go to B2. Exactly, I'll go to B2. Now this step from G6 to B2 got recorded or no? It got recorded. If yeah, recording is on. Trust me on that. Recording is on. So from G6 to B2, did it record? Yes, it did. Does it harm me? Does it harm me? Mustafa says yes. Very quick on typing. Extra step. Okay, it harms me. He's saying it's an extra step. Extra steps in Excel won't make such a big difference. It's microseconds that they're operating. So, okay, one more second taken away. Doesn't make any difference to my life. I'm not writing a formula. I'm just moving from G6 to B2. Nothing else I'm doing. When I start the macro, so it will also be doing the relative. What about others? What do you think? When we have something entered in G6, suppose any value after the macro, then again it will move from, it will take that and put it in G4. Don't worry about macros, they're all empty. They're all empty. So no values is there, no formula is there. Then does it harm me? Yes. From even if it's talking about active cell, so she's got a question. Say she's asking me when you're looking at the code, what does Excel say? Does Excel say you're moving from G6 to B2 or from the active cell? It depends on what kind of coding you've written. Is it an absolute or a relative? So in relative, it's all about active cell. So from active cell, it will start to tell you that so many rows and columns you've offset. Okay, and if you're doing an absolute recording, then it'll show you going from G6 to B2. Now, does it harm me? If it's relative or it's absolute, in both the cases it's harming me. Why? Not because of the time it will consume to move. Just because, imagine, this was your extra step that you got recorded. What it's doing is moving you on the left. Few rows on the top, few columns on the left. Now, once you finish this thing, I'm sure you will not go to column G. Once the step is done, you will be setting right on next of the next record, and you will try to use your macro. Now, what will the macro do? The first step you taught your macro was to move to the left. Absolutely, yeah. Offset is going to be calculated so many rows and so many columns. So from here, if I want to move left, can I? From column B, if I want to move left, can I? No. So there's an error. Now this is a runtime error because it would not be able to move left, so it will give you a runtime error. Think about it, even if I had some columns on the left, let's say it was able to move, is it on the right data set and operating? No. So in both the cases, it's a bad move. So that's why I said when you start recording, you have to be a little conscious of the fact that where is my cell? Always be in the right place before you start recording, because typically these movements are going to make a lot of difference when you're running the code. When you're recording, no problem. No error, no problem, nothing. But when you're running the code, you will see that you are going to fall into this runtime error, or it's not working where I want it to be. It's just because of the start cell problem. Make sense? Nikki, Manish, Saptrishi, can I explain again? This is Hans, I believe. It's just coming as Han. No Chinese student in my class, I guess. Is this Hansa? Yes, Hansa. Okay. So Hansa, what I was saying is, let's say I'm in any other cell. It may be G or it may be any cell. But what I have taught my Excel to do as a step number 1 is going left and going on the top. Right? Going left and top. So this is recorded. Excel will record it. Excel will remember it. So let's say we did this. Once we moved, we did this. We did this. We came down. We deleted it. And we said, okay, I want to shift the cell up, and then we'll end up over here. Now, this is the time when I'll start. Why don't you plug in over here? Oh. Now when you are going to start running the macro, we said I'm moving 3 columns left. So Hansa, can I move 3 columns left? Because there's only one column A next to it. No. So this is the place where it starts to give me runtime error. And the other example I was saying, let's say there are 3 columns to my left where I moved, and there are more columns. Oops. Now the problem is, if I do from here, if I move 3 columns left and few cells on the top, am I in the right cell position to transpose John Teddy's data? No. So this is the problem I was saying, that you will have trouble if you don't start from the right positions. Is it clear now? Okay, great. So this is done. Then second step comes that we have to pick these cells. Now how do we pick the cells in Excel? Either we go Control Shift down, right? Faster way of doing it. Or we can do Shift, 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 Shift and select. Okay. For us as a user, I know the difference is time. One is fast, one is a little slow, it's more manual, one is faster, it's automatic. Because the way the Control Shift down arrow key works, it goes up till the non-blank cells, last non-blank cell. But what about Excel? What is the difference to Excel when you're doing this activity? So the number of codes are the same, that is one line for both the activity. But how does Excel read it?
In the code, it will look like you're moving from B3 to B11. It will go shift down, down, but if you go control shift down, it will be like an Excel up, down, something.
So you read the code a little bit.
Yeah, I know how to read a little bit.
Okay, good. So she's absolutely correct. So what is the difference when, see, one thing is the code looks different, but Control Shift down does not include empty cell. Yeah, that would not include empty cell. It will stop at a particular place. So what I'm asking is, I'm saying this is the data. So there is no empty cell. There's no problem with this data. It's absolutely fine. On this data set, what is the difference? So when it's doing that Excel down, what is the difference between that and when you say B3 to B11?
If you add more, if you have more data, it will
continue doing that. All right. So the main difference between the two things is when you do Control Shift down, the mechanism is what? Go until the last non-blank cell. So you're not giving Excel an opportunity to count. There's no counting which takes place. So what she was saying, that whether they're 11 cell or 10 cell or 12 cell or 20 cell, Excel works. Because I'm not taught Excel how many cells to count, right? Versus if you do Shift down, 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 you're giving Excel to opportunity to count. Now what Excel remembers this step as, I have to pick 9 cells. Now in future, if there are 5 or 20 or 30, what it's going to do? Pick only 9 cells. Only 9 cells it will pick and start working on that. Understood? So that's the difference between how your selection method should be. Now I did not say pick the right one. Pick the right one. There's no right or wrong. Like what I think Mostava was saying, what if there's an empty cell over here? The Control Shift down is a very bad idea. Over here, then I should have looked at the pattern of my data, and typically you guys will have to look at the pattern of the data because macros that we record are almost like robots. It can only do fixed set of instructions. It can't think. So if you told him move 10 steps ahead and on the 10th step there's a ditch, it will fall in the ditch. Can't think. So if there's no pattern in the data, recorded macros really don't work very well, right? So you're going to look at the pattern of the data. Again, what if there was no empty row over here? It will continue transposing. It will transpose the whole all the records together in one row. Again, wrong. So again, this is one instance I should not be using Control Shift down. So look at the data and decide what is the best way to work with that data. Okay. The last thing is avoid any unnecessary work, because every time you do anything in Excel, any tool you touch, any scroller you touch, that gets recorded. So be very clear what I want to do. Do only that much. And once you've done recording, then you touch anything. I don't care. But while you're recording, anything, any wrong, either like every time you click this thing, this is one line of code. If you click it 10 times, it's 10 line of codes for us. So avoid these kind of things. Okay, so unnecessary moving here, there, going to sheets, going to workbooks, touching the tools, so clicking on them, then I don't want this, should not be there. And this will only not, this can be avoided only if you've done the first step properly. If you know exactly what I want, you will avoid the unnecessary movements there. Okay, all good? Yeah. Okay. What about online guys? All good? Bro, Anurag, okay, Shionis, Tista. I don't think so. That's the same Subrajyoti.
The spelling is exactly the same.
But I don't. Subrajyoti, you're there online. Are you the Subrajyoti who works in Nielsen? I think I have a new student whose name is exactly Subrajyoti Mandal, because when I saw the attendance list, I was also little like, why is he doing the course now? Subrajyoti, are you the same person of Nielsen? I don't think so. He's a new guy. No reactions. Half the student online do proxy with me for sure. They log in and they disappear. Okay, let's start recording now. Simple step. This is my start point. This is going to be my selection method. Now, you know what control minus does? Delete. So this is my active cell B3. When you do control minus, if you do entire row, still works well. But if you do something like this, what is my active cell? Which is my active cell? What is my active cell? Active cell. A what? A3. This is my active cell. So if you do deleting like this is not very good deleting. Why? Because you're moving your active cell a lot of time. So if I come from here and I'm over here, I do control minus. This is much better because my active cell remains still in B. But if you do like this is dangerous because you shifted your active cell to column A. So you will have to add an extra manual step to come back to column B. So small thing we don't think of, which is going to make a lot of difference when you're recording. Okay. So I'm going to be over here in the start cell. Where is recording? Recording typically happens from the view tab. Macros. View macro. What new view macro does? Why you use this a lot?
Yes.
View macros and where is it? Record macros and use relative reference. So if you remember, we said that whenever you are recording a macro, the step number 1 would be to identify whether it's a relative macro or absolute macro. And absolute is something which comes as default, right? So if I want to change something to a relative macro, this is the place I change the relative reference. And it's a very, in 2013, 2010, it's a very slight difference that you can see in the button whether it's relative or it's absolute. In 2007, it was very nice, bright orange colors come, so you know it's relative. 2016, it grays, so you know it's relative. But in 13, anybody who's on 13 and 10, it's a light green light that comes around this icon over here. So if I press on it once and I go back, you see my icon got grayed around. So it's relative now. So whatever I do, I may do 10 recordings, 20 recordings, it's all going to be recorded in a relative mode. However, while you're recording, you can keep switching, by the way, which I've never experienced I've not done it in my life, but yes, you can switch in between. You can move from relative suddenly to a absolute macro. But until someone clicks on this again, everything that's going to get recorded over here is going to be relative. Now, how do I bring it back to absolute? I'm going to go and click on it once again. So when I click on it once again, it's back to a absolute mode. Right? Can you all figure out whether you can identify it's a relative or absolute mode? Go to view, macro, and use this. So like I said, if you're using 10 and 13, a very thin, very thin green line comes around it. So when you're looking at it, don't do this. Don't click over here. When you're hovering on top of it, you won't see any colors. So you have to be just below it to see if the color happened around this icon or not. Yeah, 16. 16 has to be grayed.
Then it's
2007. Orange is 2007 color. After that, we graduated to green color. This is 13. 7. That's how he likes you guys. 7, 13, 16. Everyone experimented? 2016. For 6.
2010.
Orange is not 10. I can write it. It's written 10. Go back to your Excel. 10 was never orange color. 10 has always been green. After 7 is everything. Oh yeah, you're right. I've not noticed there because Excel 2007 has that colorful bar on the top. I'll just take it. 10 is something messed up for me in my life. I've never done that. 10 is a bad, full of bugs. 2010 is one version of Excel I've completely skipped in my life because I had it for a few days and there are too many bugs in it, so moved on. 13 is good. 16 is fine. 16 has some nice functions. Like concatenate is brilliant. Ifs is brilliant. There's a new functions which they added is good. Concat, I was really concatenate was there. Concat is a new thing. It's brilliant. Why it's brilliant? Because a lot of time, is it 365 or this? I don't know. Concat. Mine is 365. So this function concat is just brilliant. What does it do? It helps you to concatenate. But if I had things like I had to concatenate these 3 cells. So what you had to do in concatenate was you had to pick this, comma, this, comma, this. So imagine if there are 20 cells. You're picking all 20 cells and putting a comma. But in concat, I don't have to do that. I select the cells, done. So I don't know how much effective it is, but a lot of places where I've seen, I had to struggle a lot to create these formula. You can, if you want to give something in a, then you will have to put a comma, right? Then you'll have to put a comma. But if no space is there, this is brilliant. So like one of the places where I was doing the consulting, they had like 20, 30 columns like that. And we were struggling because they did not have 365. I didn't realize it's 365. It's not even 2016, but they were working on 13. So I was like 16 has it, but this is good. Second one I like about the new feature is this ifs. It's good. Max if was not there. Min ifs. Yeah. So initially we had to create these functions in VBA and utilize, but nowadays it's available. If is good because ifs really takes away the pain of putting brackets. So this is one function. What this is nested if. Without putting another if, without putting brackets, so that reduces the pain a lot because those were the places where you would make error. So this is also good. The 2 functions I really liked what they added. Okay, moving on back to VBA. Okay, so we went to view, we went to macro, we use relative reference, we go back, and now we click on record. First thing it's going to ask is the name of the macro. What should be the name? Classwork. Class 1. Class 1, you will remember. When I say, what did you do in class 1 of VBA? Sahib will be the first person to tell me that. Transpose. So always try to give a name which can help you to recall what your macro does. And why this is very, very important is because we create macros impromptu. We need it, we create it. We don't decide coming from home today, the task is to create 10 macros. So as in when you're working, you create them, right? So giving a name which is going to tell you what the macro does is very important. And again, you will have the same thing that the macro name when you're giving has to follow the rules of Excel. What are the rules of naming in Excel? Class 1 of Excel. What are the rules of naming in Excel? It should not be a dot. It should not start with a dot or a special character. What else? I'll just hear the rules first and then I'll refine it further. What Pradeep didn't teach you? I'm sure he did, you forgot. Then, what are the rules? Wild card characters. Going in the depth of his wild card characters, special characters. You can't use spaces, you can't use special characters. What else? What can you use? Underscore and dot, yellow. You can use dots, you can use underscores, you can't use spaces, you can't use any special characters, you can't start with numbers. You can have numbers in the name, but start with the numbers. And what else? You cannot have more than 255 characters. Oh, that was the rule he was looking for. Why am I not able to name? You can't have spaces in name. When you're naming a cell, anything that you, and this whole cell referencing is not the same. So when you are saying cell referencing, this is cell referencing. Yes, so if I pick this set of cells and I say record 1, I cannot have space between record and 1. So that is not permissible. So all those rules still hold good in VBA. When you're writing the code, they'll be there. When you're recording a macro, they are still there. So going back, macros, record a macro. What should be the name? Let's say transpose and give a shortcut key. T. T. Okay. Transpose T, control T. And what about C? You already have. So can you overwrite or not? If we already have something, so they are saying no, you can't have C. Actually, it doesn't. Macros is like a supreme being of Excel because through macros you created Excel. So if you give control C, it will not say no to you. It'll say, okay, I'll make it control C. Now the problem with that is when you press control C on your keyboard, what will happen? Will it run the macro? Will it copy? It'll run the macro. As long as this macro is active, as long as this workbook is active where the control C commands means something, it will run the macro. If your this workbook is closed, then it does the regular work. So you have to be a little careful about what shortcut keys you guys are giving. Safest is if you do shift and a combination. So what will be my shortcut key? It can be control plus anything from A to Z, or it could be a control plus shift plus A to Z. Okay, anything. Now, how does capital A to Z comes? When you press the shift key on your keyboard and you press any alphabet, it automatically becomes control shift that. So let's say, no, description is notes for you. But it's not mandatory. Nothing is mandatory. You don't even give a shortcut key, even that doesn't matter. You leave the basic name macro one, it doesn't matter. Nothing is mandatory right now. So control shift T and we click OK. And now onwards, whatever you do, good, bad, ugly, gets recorded. So have a little more patience when you're recording your macros. So what was it? Going one step down, selecting, copying, coming up, transpose, coming down, deleting the records, selecting this as my active cell, and now I'm going to stop recording. So this stop button at the bottom, either you click this or you can go back and stop recording. Either way, you have to stop recording. Sometimes we forget we have to stop recording and we start running the macro. We start using a shortcut key. What do you think will happen if I use a shortcut key without stopping the macro? So it is going to get recorded, the running part, or it will warn you, hey, it's not stopped yet, can't run. It will get recorded as a part of your code. So it's always a bad idea, right? So always try to stop recording before you run a code. So once you're done, stop recording. Control Shift T was my shortcut key. If I press Control Shift T, it works. Now I had to press Control Shift key so many times. It's not that one time I press and it worked. I pressed it about 12 times. So imagine if there were 2000 records. How many of you are willing to press Control Shift T 1999 times? Probably not. And that's the reason I was saying that we take help of both. We can record this code. So the basic code is already ready. All I have to put is a for loop, which is around 2 lines. Start, end. And once you press Control T, it finish all the work for you. So that's why we need to mix these two things together. We can't solely depend on recording. A lot of things don't get recorded. So we can't depend only on it. So you should know how to record, how to utilize, where to get the code, how to edit the code and make it work for your benefit. Got it? Any question in recording? Guys online, any question on recording? Fairly simple work. Nothing fancy in it. Okay, so what you're going to do, create a new workbook, open a new workbook. And on the top, just simple exercise, let's put name, phone number, and email ID. So name, I'm leaving one row, I'm trying to recreate the same data as you guys I worked on. This is my fake email ID and my fake phone number. Actually, one student had sent me at ea@gmail.com. Luckily, copied Ivy Pro School also. So that's how I came to know people are trying to use this email. It's not my email ID. And this is not my phone number, just in case you try to call on this. So let's say there is a dummy data and just let's not waste time in creating dummy data. So I'm just copy pasting it. And we're going to do the same activity that I did. Create a macro and run a macro to convert into a tabular format. If you guys are going to have errors while running, you will not redo it. You have to tell me, Eeshani, I got an error, because I can read the code in the back end and I can tell you where exactly what went wrong. So that you also know while you recorded what step you took wrong. So do this code. If you're running and you're getting an error, you need to talk to me. Start. Done? Works? Mustafa done? Last part. Whatever last part, Ishika, Ashika? Follow things are next. How to see, where can you use it, how do you change the keys and all those things.
अच्छा इनपुट सेक्टर A3 था फिर मैं A सेक्टर एक देखने का मेरे को प्रश्न
এটা হচ্ছে রোজ এটা পড়ছিস এই সালে তো এই বছর মানে এটা
selection selection
selection box minus 1 the range A1 A1 is A1 select for now selection box is the solve levels
Mexico politically and very politically linear model
এই যে এখানে ফলো GRP
simplex আমি আমার simplex আইজার
What happened? It's not working. For whom it's not working? Okay, good. How to copy all the cells. This is not an Excel class, it's a VBA class. So I'm not going to tell you how to copy the cells now. Ma'am is done, but not arranged in a proper manner. Means it's not done. I'll tell you how to see the codes. No cells were found. And don't tell me that you got runtime error 28. I don't know what runtime 28 means. Right below runtime 28 would be English. So you tell me that sentence, I can help you. But don't tell me runtime 28. Okay, who needs help? Google भी कर लो कि क्या फायदा याद किसको रखना है. Point is right below that it's written in English what is the error. So focus on that. Why 28 and 4 and 101 and 107 you will remember. What happened? Who wanted me to show the screen? Okay, Abhishek, let's see your screen first. Anandita, yours is done. No. Why is error? ओके और फिर से क्या शुरू मैंने बोला था फिर से शुरू करने से पहले मुझे बता देना प्रेस ऑल्ट F11 ऑल्ट F11 प्रेस ऑल्ट F8 अभिषेक ऑल्ट F8 Abhishek, can you hear me? Press Alt F8. And if nothing is happening when you're pressing Alt F8, probably you need your function key to use your function key on the top. So there must be Fn key on your keyboard. So
Okay,
Fn
ma'am.
Alt and F8.
But ma'am, it's not working.
Do you have a Fn key on your keyboard?
Yes, ma'am.
So press that and Alt and then F8.
No, ma'am,
No,
it's
you
not
pressed
working.
Alt first. You're not using it correctly. Go back to View. Go to
Okay.
View tab on the top. And go to View Macros. Click on Edit.
Yes, ma'am.
So what is this? Relative or absolute you did?
Ma'am, I have done.
Absolute. You've done absolute. There is no relative reference code. So close it. Close the one on the top. Right top. Close this file. Right. So go back to your view. Go to macros drop down. This is not this is absolute. It's not relative.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Redo the exercise and make sure it's relative at this time.
Okay.
Who
ma'am.
else needs help online? Guys online, who needs my help? Sanchari. You guys are sorted, Preetham? Preetham, you sorted? समझ आया क्या गड़बड़ है साहिब? संचारी share your screen. आपका हो गया पल्लवी? So what are you guys working on in Nielsen? No, but what? Like what? Sara BI tools.
RTL is just the
NAT is a data converter.
Okay.
and RTL helps on macros. That's why we use macros. So macro which actually calls the data, which is represents it in a predefined format. Then what conditional format. That's the in-house tool basically. And besides that, we'll be learning AIs. That's
That's
the
the whole
AI.
microstrategy. Tuning is the reference. And new things which are coming up is Connect Express and Quasar. Quasar is a cross validation device.
Quasar मैंने सुना हुआ है.
OTG.
Are you
And
use?
Ordina. So I don't know what the project is coming, but I'm going to receive the training on it.
And the lab.
You know us, right?
There's the utilities which I have to use.
Use over there.
I don't have the statistical analysis, so I have to see what I do. Acha.
Sanchari, can you share your screen? I'm going to move to Obro
So we have
because
to design a website also for our department.
so HTML.
We all the accounts of tax HTML.
HTML.
Any of the frameworks of a script.
Good, right? At least your jobs are secure. Think of it like that.
Exactly.
Obro, share the screen. Anandi is still not worked. Hold on. Did you redo it? You recorded the code? No. No. Very nice. Without showing it to me. Now what you trying to do? What more? Just you see the green outline? Like if I click on it again, now see, do you see the green outline? It's only black. ध्यान से देखो ये black है, एक ही outline है डब्बे के बाहर. Click over here, come back. You see इसके ऊपर भी एक और line है, double line हो गया ना ये. Now it's done. Recording. Guys who are asking for help online, you need to share your screen. If you don't share your screen, I really can't help you. Sanchari, are you there? Obro? Why are you unable to share the screen? Should I send the request once again to you? Or you know what? Why don't you copy paste? Hold on, I've got a better idea. So that I don't have to. Okay, let me try once again to see your screen. Otherwise, I'll tell you what to do. I'm not able to see your code, Sanchari, and we are wasting time now. Guys, my offline guys, nobody cares. I'm not able to see the screen. I can't keep waiting. The other way to do it is, guys, Sanchari and what's her name? Bro. What you guys need to do? Wait. No chit chatting. I'll put all three of you in three different corners then. No talking. There's still class running. What was I saying? So Sanchari and Avrodeep, what you guys can do, go to view and go to the view macro. In view macro, you'll see your code and click on edit and copy paste the code and send it to me. So I can look at the code, what's going on over there. Okay. coding, I'll tell if people allow me to move on. Okay, Pradeep, the problem in your code is again this thing that it is absolute recording. It's not relative recording. You guys need to do relative recording. How do you know it's absolute on your relative when you look at it? Because in relative, this is a relative recording. How do I know it? Active cell's positions, active cell comes into picture because the whole relative recording is based on active cell. Versus if you look at this code, which was sent by Obro, you don't see active cell. You see A3 to B8, A5. So you know it's an absolute recording. Okay, so what is the problem in Sanchari's? Okay, I know what the problem is. Okay, Sanchari, this is the thing that is happening. Where you have recorded your macro is that it has to be on top of A3 and then you run it. Yes or no? So when you're rerunning it, you have to make sure that you are still on the next available record. So your recording is, if you're going to keep your cell on an empty cell and try to run your code, it's not going to run. Like it's running, but it's going to transpose wrong set of data. So in your code, the way you've developed, if you've kept this as a starting cell, smart move will say keep this as an ending cell. So what Sanchari has done, she's kept this as a starting cell, but ending cell is this one. So when you're trying to rerun the code, you're trying to just press the shortcut key without thinking where it's working now. Now it's going to work like this and transpose this. So all your next data sets are messed up. So if you're going to start from here, you make sure you end also so that your manual steps are decreased. Got it? So you can, re-record the entire thing once again. Now, what are the problems that we can do? Something like this is one good case. What if I would have selected my cells before I started recording? Good or bad? Deepika, if I would have started if I select and I start recording, bad or good? Bad? This is bad. Why? Because you did not teach Excel how to select. And if you did not teach how to select, who has to do that job? You. So again, you have introduced a manual step, right? So try to, it's not that it's going to work on these cells. If it's relative, it's not going to work on these cells. But again and again, you have to choose for Excel that which cell it has to work on. So that is a big problem. So try to be a little more, go in the depth of what should be done, what not should be done. That's what I'm saying. This dry run process is very, very important. Okay, everybody knows the shortcut keys, how to copy the cells and so on and so forth. Please remember Excel, we do VBA after Excel for this reason also. That Excel I don't have to teach you once again. Tista, what is the issue you're having? Can you copy paste your code and send it? So can I move on, guys? Yes. Yeah, I'm going to deal with all those FAQs, frequently asked questions. Number one, can I, okay, hold on, let's solve Tista's query and then move on. Speechless. So you copied Tista, you transposed, you deleted, then you chose a cell, and after that, why are we doing Control Shift down arrow, down arrow, down arrow, down arrow? So all these last things, that is range selection, comma selection dot down dot select, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The last 9 rows that you have deleted in your code. Then you go back in Excel and try to run your code again. So these are unnecessary lines that you have. Before you proceed, yes, Pawan, what do we need? Don't say the B word. B word, break. Because as soon as I spell it out, all of you need the break. Yeah, break. Quick recap. Did you join in late? Yeah, no recap. Sorry. Proceed. I can't make the people who came on time go back again. These sessions are getting recorded. Please look at the video. Still not able to follow? Please help me. This session might get it might get complete little early today. So once it get completed, then I can recap for the people who joined in late, but not right now in the middle of the session. Okay. So first thing, can I give the same shortcut key to multiple macros? And what did macro Excel say? Answer is no. Why it cannot? Because see, when you are using these macros becomes universal to the entire Excel. They are not bound by a particular worksheet, or they're not bound by particular workbook. If I've recorded a macro in this workbook, I can go to another workbook and try to do the same activity, like let's say 1 2 3 4 5. All it has to do is transpose and delete. My key was Control Shift T. It works, right? So if it was a specific to workbook, I think Excel would have allowed it. But since this is not specific to workbook, it is Excel. On the entire Excel, the shortcut keys work. Hence, it cannot allow it, because there's going to be conflict, right? If I press Control Shift T, which macro should run? Right? So that does not even allow it. If you are trying to give a shortcut key which already exists, it stops you right there.
Okay, madam, somehow I send this sheet to someone.
Yes.
Yeah.
The shortcut key works. It has more to do with the code is stored. So I'll come to that part. It has less to do with the sheets. Okay. Second thing, how can I edit or see my code or copy? Okay. The answer would be go to Alt F8. Now please understand how your function keys work on the top. Do you need to press an Fn on your laptop, or you don't need to press an Fn? That's up to you. But the main key is Alt F8. Once you do that, or this can also be done under View, you go to View Macros. Under View, you go to Macros, and under Macros, you go to View Macros. So the shortcut key is Alt F8. And underneath this, then you will find, you select your macro, and then you press the edit button. Okay, so Alt F8, this window should open up. Any macro that you have in any of the open workbook typically appears over here. My macro name is transpose. If I want to look at the code, I click on edit, and as soon as you click on edit, it takes you to the backend of Excel. This is the VB environment, VB editor, VBE, what you popularly call. This is the place where we do all our coding. Okay, and this is the code that you see. Your shortcut key is mentioned over there. If you've given any description, that gets mentioned over there. Whatever is the name of the macro that you gave is the name of the sub that you have. And in between, these are the line of codes that Excel has written for you. If I want to come back to Excel, either I can close my VB editor, I come back to Excel, or press the same shortcut, or press the shortcut key of F11, Alt F11. Second thing, how can I review or change or delete my shortcut? Pretty much the same thing, same step. Alt F8, view macro, select macro, and go to options. Sometimes it may happen you have given a shortcut key that you repent now, like Control C. Now you've seen it does not work very well. So press Alt F8, options. Once you go to options, if you forgot a key, this is the way you remember which key it was. If you forgot to give a key, now give a key. If you want to change a key, this is the place where you change a key. So you go to options and do it. Then next thing is, what else can you do in this? Where are the codes stored? Where are they stored? The codes are actually stored in module of typically a workbook. Typically, not all the time. We'll again go further in where the codes are stored. But your codes are associated with workbooks. So where are they stored? In the backend in the workbook. Now in the workbook, you will see there are several portions. There are three major portions that you will see. there is something called Excel objects and there is module. If you click on Excel objects, you see there are sheets. So whatever sheets you have in the front end in Excel is what you will see in the back end. Then there is something called this workbook and there is something called a module. Typically, when you have a new workbook, so I'm opening a new workbook and you go back in the VB editor, you will see modules are not there. A new workbook does not have any modules in it. What it has is a number of sheets that you have in front and this workbook. So the module gets created when the modules are getting created when you record a macro. So it records a macro and puts it in a module. Okay, so where are the codes getting stored? They are getting stored in modules of the respective workbooks. Now, how do I save my code? How do you save the code? You're going to save the workbook in which they are kept. Save the workbook in which they are kept as macro enabled workbook. The short form, the extension is XLSF. So what happens if I do not store it as a macro enabled workbook? Let's say I'm going to pick this code. And I'm going to paste it in book 2. Going back and let me save the book 2. So when you click on save, browser place, over here it's coming save as. So typically what it does, it save as an Excel workbook. Let's continue to click save. As soon as you're going to save a workbook which has codes in it, like a normal Excel file, it gives you a warning. What it is saying is the features cannot be saved as a macro free workbook. Macro free workbook means what? The codes are not there in the backend. Free of macros, no coding in the backend. And like we generally tend to do, yes, okay, are the 2 buttons we press the fastest without reading. If you say yes in this case, you're going to lose all your codes. It's going to wipe out everything in the VB editor and leave only the data in the front. Okay, so be a little conscious about read and then press. Then we are going to say no. And once you say no, how you're going to save it as a macro enabled workbook. Okay, if you don't save it as a macro enabled workbook, then it's gone. In my case, if I'm going to save, nothing is going to come up because my workbook, when I started, I've already saved as a macro enabled workbook. So that's not going to be a problem for me. Okay, number 6. Where should I store the codes? One is where are the codes stored? One is where should I store the codes? So if you go back to the view and if you go back to record, we worked on macro name, we worked on the shortcut key, and we did not work on this part which is store macro in. So you guys actually decide where the macro should be stored. You get 3 options. You get this workbook, new workbook, and a personal macro workbook. So what is the consequences of using either of the selection and which one should I use where? So if I have 3 options, let's say I've got this workbook, I've got a new workbook, and I've got a personal macro workbook, right? So I'm going to make 2 areas. One is where the recording is done and where the code is stored. Let's say we have this workbook and the recording is done in book 1. Okay, book 1 is a workbook in which we are doing the recording. Now, if you say I want to store the code in this workbook, whose module do you think it will go? Book 1, because that's a name. It's suggesting, the name is suggesting this workbook. Where do you want to store the code? This workbook. What does it mean? Wherever you are recording, it goes in the module of that particular workbook. So this is going to go in the module of book 1. And you will see in book 1, suddenly the module area gets created and there's a module 1 in which if you double click on module 1, the code will be there. Now, if I say new workbook and I am still recording in book 1, but I say store it in a new workbook. So what do you think should happen? module 2 of book 2. What is book 2? It's a new workbook which got opened. How does it open? Automatically. Right? So it will be kept in the book 2, which is a new workbook, which automatically gets created. We don't do anything. As soon as we click OK, you will see a new workbook got created. So code is kept in book 2. And if I'm doing the last one, so even if I'm recording in book 1, where does the personal go? Personal go in the VBA editors. So this is workbook free. It's not associated with any workbook. Now, how does it matter which workbook it gets stored? How does it matter? How should it matter to me that whether it got stored in book 1 or book 2 or VB editor? How should it matter to me?
If you want to use this code, suppose you close all the instances of the exception.
Right.
And we want again
Reuse the code. Absolutely correct. Good thinking. So how does it affect me? The way it affects me is when you talk about code, codes are going to run when they are active. Now, when the code will be active to run? When the workbook is open. If my workbook is closed, my code is closed, my code won't run. So you may press 100 times the shortcut key, nothing is going to happen. So being associated with the workbook, what does it mean? That that particular workbook should be open for my code to run. Now, which one should we prefer? Should I prefer this workbook, personal or new workbook? Personal, most dangerous. I've destroyed my Control Y key on one of the workbooks because of that. Courtesy that. Control Y, which is redo. Control Y is not deleting things for me. So I have to be very conscious, subconsciously. I'm like, don't use Control Y. Now this workbook jumped from one extreme to the second extreme. It depends on what. This workbook. So popular choice seems to be this workbook. Now tell me one thing. I said we create macros on the fly. So would you know after 2 weeks which workbook you recorded the macro? Is it possible? After 2 weeks, I remember, yeah. That 2 weeks back, I was working on that workbook when I created that macro. Now let me open that workbook. Is it possible? Chances are very less, right? So when should I use this workbook? This workbook is to be used if it's a daily routine work. If I'm going to use that macro every day, simple task, cleaning of the data. Fetching the data from one place, putting in a certain structure. This is my everyday task before we start analysis, before we start our reporting. Then that can be put in this workbook because there's no other way to remember which workbook it is. So if it's a daily task, used when daily task. I hope this is clear, right? If I write just used when daily task. It use. When it is a daily task, then I should use this macro because I know exactly which workbook I need to be in. When should I use a new workbook? For random macros, random uses. Random uses, why? Because every time you create a macro, a new workbook gets created in which the code of only that particular code is kept. No data is there, no other code is there, only that one particular code is there. So the smart move is to name the workbook with the name of the macro. So if you name the workbook with the name of a macro and create a folder of all such files, is easy to find your workbooks where the macros are kept. So according to me, I think best is new workbook. Because in this, no data is there, nothing is there, only the code pertaining to my work is there, and it's easy to identify which workbook to work with. Yes, anytime you want to use the code, you don't have to think too much because there's a folder called macro folders. Put all the workbooks with the name of the macros and use it. Okay. Personal, I would say don't use it now because since I say it's workbook free, the only problem that I have with this is that shortcut key has no control. Your shortcut key, if you press at any point on any workbook, it's going to work. Now the challenge with that is when you run your shortcut key, a code runs in the back. Now when a code runs on Excel, the undo keys don't work. So Control Z does not happen. So if by mistake someone is sitting on your computer and uses a shortcut key, instead of Shift, the person did Control something, the code starts to run. And that's very bad. Or even worse, like how many times, I'm sure you must be doing that. When I move to computer, I make a lot of mistakes in where the keys are because you're set on your laptop. On even my laptop, like right now I had to do Control V, but I did Shift V. So what I'm trying to tell, the mistake of running the shortcut key is very high. And the consequences is you lose your data depending on what code ran. So Control Z doesn't work. But what you can do, yes, you can close the file and open it again. But if you had to save something, that's gone. And sometimes we have code in which we inbuilt that save as. This is done, then save as. So that nothing can go wrong with it. Nobody can close the file and undo that. And that's permanent damage there. So I would suggest stay away from your personal macros for now. Even I try to stay away as much as possible. New workbook is, I think, becomes very, very handy. So anytime you want to work, open the workbook, work with it, close the workbook. Shortcut keys is only enabled for the time being we want it. When we don't want it, it's closed. All right. Any questions? Yes. Personal macro workbook, what it does, it's like you see there's a solver, there's a workbook over here. Over here, personal Excel AM will get created. And all the code is kept in that particular part. How do you fetch it? The module will be there. Yes, it's inbuilt to Excel there. Like solver, irrespective which workbook you open, solver is always there. So it's something like that. It's kind of an add-in you create. Yes. If you don't put the shortcut key, then you can run the macro by going to Alt F8 and then in View Macro, you click on Run. Or you click on Edit and in Edit, you press Alt F5, which is the shortcut key for running the code. But you know, the whole point of using a macro is to reduce on your time, reduce on your errors. So if you are doing extra steps to run it, you're wasting your time. So that's why we like to give shortcut keys. Got it? And trust me, you will not run out of shortcut keys. A lot of people get worried. Only A to Z. No ones. No. No combinations. No. Only A to Z. Big and small. More than enough. Nobody has ever run out of it. And the day Microsoft Office sees that people are running out of it, I am sure they'll do something about it. All right. Any questions? So this was the part one. Yes. What loop case?
200 times if I have to use the micro, I want to just give control shift.
Till now you have to. Right now you have to. Right now you have to, because I can't just teach you one part of how to put a for loop in between. I have to go stepwise. Like I said, today's class was only recording. Tomorrow when you come, we'll start with the programming concepts, where I'll introduce you to basic terminology of programming. Things that are in programming were not there in Excel, things which is common to Excel and VBA. Then we get into if statements, because a lot of condition checking has to be there. Then we get into the definite loops, which is for loops, which you want to know. Then we get into conditional based loop, which is do while loops. And we learn go to. So that brings the end of the programming. Once this is done, then we get into the Excel automation. So the third part is where you can answer your own question. That I don't have to tell you. Switch case will be there. No, it's not switch case, select case. C++ switch case, no. VBA is called select case. Okay, how many of you are non-programmers? Like non-programmers definition is never done in the life. Somewhat will count. You're an engineer if I remember. Then you're a commerce graduate, okay. So never ever. 1, 2, it doesn't matter. 6 to 12, 6 years of formal training. Bus. So if imagine what you've done in your 6 years and what I've done from my class 11 till I'm 37, 38 now. I'm going to give you 9 hours, 9 classes. How's that? Bad for them, right? So why I am asking this thing, non-programmers, next 3 classes take it very, very seriously. It's going to be very bugging, very annoying, very difficult, all at the same time. But this is the most important part Because if you don't know the structures of how we work with programming, you will not be able to do part 3 at all. When it comes to part 3, it becomes very exciting and logic becomes very easy if you know Excel very well. In this part, your logic development has to be done, your syntax orientation has to be done, your programming concept have to be done, everything has to be done in 3 classes. And after that is just using the syntax you've learned, the concepts you have learned on Excel, and Excel you already know. So that becomes easier. I'm assuming we know. And don't ask me questions like how do you copy cells together. That should not come across as a question. Okay, you remember Excel? And any other question? So we're done for today. Typically, it's not going to be such a short and sweet class, but I don't like to mix my 4 parts. So first class is always a little shorter. Next time onwards, it's going to be full length 3-hour classes. Don't get very afraid when I give you a problem and people say done very fast. Don't worry. Like I said, these guys have 6-7 years of experience in programming. This is the first time you guys are doing it. So let them work at their pace, you work at your pace. Don't get afraid of these guys. Secondly, make sure you're doing all my assignments. Okay. Third thing, don't ask me this question. No. Don't ask me this question. What is the relevance of these programs in the industry? There is no relevance. When we started our programming, we had to write the things like hello world and print star Christmas tree. So obviously I still haven't found a relevance of it in my industry, but that's how unfortunately the programming concepts are being taught, because you have to teach in small bits and you can't give an industry example where the small bits are used. So what is the relevance of any example I'm going to go give in next 3 classes? I have no relevance in industry. But the basic structure with which you are going to do this program has a lot of relevance. Because yesterday somebody got a little frustrated. Why are we doing this? Why do I need to find prime number in industry? I'm like, you'll never do that. Don't worry. Why am I doing factorial? Don't worry, you don't have to do it. But for the purpose of teaching, we have to. That's the only way I found in so many years to be taught and to be.
No, even it works in the same.
I know. That's what I said. I make star Christmas tree. For what? I don't know. So many things we don't know why we did it. So exactly. So the smaller things you have to teach through those nonsense programming. So that's okay. Okay, so end of class today. You guys can leave. You all are in Google Classroom. Let's sort this Google Classroom also. Yes, Mustafa, that's my next thing. I'm going to put up the Google Classroom link over here, the code. If you haven't been able to join, make sure you use the code and join in. So you are a part of Google Classroom? Not sure. Did you get it in? All of you need to be a part of Google Classroom. A mail has a code also, by the way. Yeah. Video, the notes, the class links. Let's say one day you cannot come